And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows.
We are now in the era of imperial Israel. A new status quo is being established by the United States, Israel, and their partners across the region and in Europe. War rules the world. Permanent genocide. There is no turning back. The Zionist Empire of Israel is expanding. Israel, in 600 days, has bombed Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Yemen, and the coast of Malta. Israel is setting the world on fire to protect its genocide. From a settler colonial ideology to an imperial power, the choice in the region is between independence or direct Israeli control. Israel is today a psychopathic entity. It kills as it breathes.
Let me just bring you some breaking news. Around 60 people, including 20 children, have been killed in an attack on a housing complex in the capital, Tehran.
Israel has added Iranian children to the long list of children it kills. It also killed civilians, nuclear scientists, and even the person heading Iran's nuclear negotiations, Ali Shamkhani.
Today we sat down with Ali Shamkhani. He said Iran also wants a deal.
Yes, we are ready.
We can definitely have better relations with the U.S.
Shamkhani said that Iran is willing to commit to never having a nuclear weapon, to getting rid of its stockpiles of highly enriched uranium, to only enriching to a level needed for civilian use, and to allow inspectors in to oversee it all, in exchange for lifting all sanctions immediately. He said Iran would accept that deal tonight.
Zionism is, of course, as we have known for many decades, the enemy of peace in the region. Israel has bombed a nuclear facility in Iran. If any state in the world were to bomb a nuclear facility anywhere, there would be universal condemnation of that act. Instead, we find universal collaboration with that act.
A Downing Street spokesperson has told us that the Prime Minister has spoken to the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz this morning. The leaders discussed the long-held grave concerns about Iran's nuclear program. The leaders reaffirmed Israel's right to self-defense.
They forget to mention that Israel has over 200 nuclear warheads, which it does not declare. It's the only state in the Middle East which does so. Israel procured nuclear weapons through the work of Jonathan Pollard, an Israeli spy within the US military, who stole military secrets from the US, particularly on the development of nuclear weapons, and gave them to Israel. It is on the back of that treachery that Israel was able to obtain its nuclear arsenal.
Well, in 2015, after nearly 30 years in prison and extensive efforts to free him, Pollard was granted parole, just under strict conditions. Pollard's parole has since been lifted, and his 5-year ban on travel was also now allowed to go unrenewed, in a move seen by some as a parting gift from the Trump administration.
Israeli nuclear scientist Mordechai Vanunu tried to lift the lid on Israel's nuclear program when he was under the care of the Rupert Murdoch-owned Times newspaper, and tell the world about what was happening.
To inform the world about Israel's nuclear secret.
However, he was swiftly honey-trapped and kidnapped by Israel's external intelligence agency, Mossad.
The door opened and immediately jumped on me 2 people, and one kicked me in the stomach and I collapsed. Another one jumped on me, put his hand on my mouth, silencing me. Another woman came and injected me, and then I lost my conscience.
He was imprisoned for decades, most of it in solitary confinement, and now he is not allowed to leave occupied Palestine or have any communication with quote-unquote foreigners.
All what I want is to be free and to feel freedom. It could happen only when I leave Israel. To be free is to leave this country and to go abroad. Set me free from Israel. Let me go out of Israel.
Israel and its supporters talk about this as a preemptive strike against Iran. But it is Israel that has within its military directorate something called the Samson option, which is justifying the use of nuclear weapons against a target it deems fit. Iran has no such directive and has no nuclear weapons. Iran is being targeted for regime change because for decades it has supported the Palestinian resistance. The commitment of Iran to Palestine's liberation is not emotional or symbolic. It can be clearly traced through the words of both the Palestinians and their enemies. As was revealed by Talal Naji, the General Secretary of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Iran has gone to great lengths to arm, train and fund all of the Palestinian resistance factions fighting Israel. He also asserts that Iran made possible for the Palestinian factions to develop their own means to defend themselves through training which took place in Iran, Syria, Lebanon and Gaza. Talal Naji stated it was Soleimani himself who oversaw the delivery of Russian Kornet missiles to the resistance factions, which were then able to lay waste to Israeli Merkava tanks. Saleh al-Aruri, the late Hamas leader, stated Iran was the only state in the world with a budget that existed specifically for Palestinian liberation. The testimony of these individuals on Iran's contribution to the Palestinian cause cannot be discounted when understanding the development of all of this. The leader of the Iranian Revolution, Khomeini, stated,
"We are the supporters of any oppressed people. Anyone, anywhere who is oppressed, we will have sympathy with them. The Palestinians are oppressed by the Israelis, and Israelis is the oppressor, so we are sympathetic with the Palestinians."
He also stated, everyone should realize that the world's superpowers aim to create Israel does not end with the occupation of Palestine. They plan, heaven forbid, extending the fate of Palestine to all Arab countries. We are now in the process of the Greater Israel Project. Foreign intervention and regime change is not new in Iran. In the early 50s, Mohammad Mossadegh, a leader who was democratically elected, was overthrown in a CIA and MI6-backed coup in order to push back and establish what is now known as British Petroleum, BP. At that time, the company, the Anglo-Iranian oil company, Mossadegh hoped to nationalize it and use the country's resources for the betterment of his people. For that, he was overthrown and the Shah was installed. Today, you have the son of the Shah vying to take over Iran.
The ultimate solution is regime change. Now we have an opportunity.
Where are we heading? Alex Karp of CIA firm Palantir, which has been essential to Israel's genocide in Gaza.
I'm super proud of our stuff on the battlefield and to kill our enemies and scare them because they know they will be killed. That's my agenda. It doesn't have to be yours.
Alex Karp says that a three-front war with China, Russia, and Iran is on the cards. The United States is remaking the world, and Israel is the spear. We need to use our voices in every way we can to fight for peace and not war. While this policy is being taken by some of the most unpopular governments in the history of humanity, the vast majority of people across the world are against this war. Israel has normalized the killing of children in Palestine, in Gaza, in Yemen, in Syria, in Lebanon, and now Iran. The longer this continues, the more possible it will be in future to kill other children in other places. This is degrading our own humanity.
Every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire.
Hello, I'm CJ Willerman, and in this episode, we reveal how a potential US war against Iran will result only in the destruction of both Israel and the United States. But first, please remember to like and subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. During the presidential campaign, Trump promised to end the war in Ukraine and bring peace to the Middle East. But instead, he has emboldened Russian aggression, bombed Yemen, and given Israel a green light to continue its genocidal operations without restraints or limits. And now the Orange Menace is on the verge of launching a war against Iran, having openly admitted to delaying an imminent Israeli attack against the Persian country's nuclear reactors.
Off an Israeli attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. Can you comment on that? Is that accurate?
And they say the attack is what?
That you waved off an Israeli plan to attack Iranian nuclear facilities.
I wouldn't say waved off. I'm not in a rush to do it because I think that Iran has a chance to have a great country and to live happily without death. And I'd like to see that. That's my first option. If there's a second option, I think it would be very bad for Iran.
Israel is preparing military strikes against Iran's nuclear program with full US support, as evident in the Pentagon deploying B-52 and B-2 bombers to Diego Garcia, an island military base located in the Indian Ocean. This rapid buildup is supported by the deployment of 2 aircraft carriers to the Red Sea, and the relocation of Patriot and THAAD missile systems in the region. Trump is applying a maximalist pressure campaign to force Tehran into rolling back its nuclear capabilities. His message is clear: either give up your nuclear ambitions or we will bomb and invade you. It's the exact same threat made against Saddam Hussein. But unlike Iraq, Iran does possess weapons of mass destruction, having acquired enough material to produce at least 2 nuclear warheads. It not only carries a nuclear deterrent, but also has the capability to hit back and hard, with at least one former US State Department advisor warning that while the US can start a war against Iran, it will be Tehran that has the final say.
Well, Iran is weakened in the region, but Iran has significant amount of missile capability still. And Iran has a very advanced nuclear program that, yes, it can be bombed, but it cannot be destroyed from the air, and it can be rebuilt. And so just bombing Iran's nuclear facilities does not do away with its nuclear program. And that's exactly is where Iran's leverage is. The United States can start a war with Iran, but it will not get to finish it. It will not have the say as to how Iran would react or whether Iran would go nuclear or not. And therefore, I think the Iranians understand that war is not in their advantage, but is also not in America's advantage either. And they have enough nuclear capability right now to hold America and Israel's attention, and that's what is bringing the United States to the diplomatic table.
Iran has spent years preparing its air, land, and sea defenses against an Israeli or US attack. There's simply no war scenario Tehran hasn't already gamed out. It wisely kept its gunpowder dry while the Zionist army exhausted its ammunition and assets in its failed war against Hamas, a poorly armed amateur militia in comparison to the powerful Iranian military. Its options for counterstriking Israel and the United States are virtually limitless.
An adversary that would almost certainly turn to guerrilla tactics early on. Military analysts say Iran could stage attacks such as those last year on tankers in the Strait of Hormuz and Saudi oil fields. The U.S. blamed Iran for those hits. Iran denied it, but world oil markets were briefly rocked nonetheless, and bigger attacks could undeniably create larger shocks.
Iran is fully aware that in order to defeat the United States, it must blow US warships out of the water and shoot down its B-52 and stealth bombers from the skies. No doubt, this represents a huge challenge for any military to overcome. But Iran has the luxury of possessing one of the world's most modern and powerful missile defense systems. And last month, it showed off just one of its many so-called missile cities, in which thousands of ballistic missiles are pointed towards Israel and US assets in the region, while kept safe in sprawling, sophisticated underground facilities. American aircraft carriers and destroyers will be hit like never before by a combination of submarine and surface vessels.
Iran will counter American carrier strike groups using a combination of swarming speedboat tactics, and there are also reports that suggest Iran may have acquired small submarines from North Korea, adding to its existing arsenal of Ghadar-class midget submarines. Additionally, Iran has developed new stealth, twin-hull attack ships designed to counter larger U.S. destroyers as well as hidden container ships with missiles.
Iran also has a strategy to counter US warplanes.
Iran's K-bar-Shekan missile, which entered service in 2022, is specifically designed to bypass advanced air defense systems. It runs on solid fuel, meaning it can launch quickly, and its warhead is a triconic shape that stays stable even during extreme maneuvering. Iran says this missile can beat THAAD, Patriot, and Israel's David's Sling, and thanks to its terminal maneuvering ability, it can even strike moving targets like airborne bombers. At impact, it's still moving at around Mach 2 to 3. That's fast enough to cause serious trouble.
The one glaring hole in Iran's air defense is a missile platform that's capable of taking out B-2 stealth bombers, which fly at subsonic speeds with a range of 4,000 miles and a maximum altitude of 50,000 feet, therefore putting it out of reach of a majority of Iran's air defenses. A huge concern given this warplane carries a large arsenal of 500 and 2,000-pound bombs. But here's the thing. Wars aren't won from the air. They must be won on the ground. A lesson the United States knows all too well, having failed to defeat the Iran-backed Houthi militias despite bombing Yemen consistently for the past decade. And it's also a lesson that Israel learnt the hard way, having watched Hamas grow stronger and more determined after bombing Gaza for the past 18 months. So, if the United States and Israel wants to defeat Iran, they will have to put boots on the ground, a move that guarantees the United States suffers a crushing and humiliating defeat. Firstly, the US lacks the regional bases necessary to build up the forces required to invade Iran, destroy its armed forces, displace the revolutionary regime in Tehran, and then control the population. And even if the US somehow manages to pull all of that off, Iranian soldiers would simply remove their uniforms, melt into the general population, and launch an armed insurgency, the kind that saw the US get its ass kicked in Vietnam, Somalia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. A ground invasion would also send the price of oil rocketing to the moon, and in turn, creating a global economic shockwave that will not only crash the American economy, but also ignite further social and political unrest, leading potentially to civil war and societal collapse. And none of what I've just forewarned takes into consideration the fact that Iran has the capability to strike back hard against its attackers.
Iran could call on its many allies in the region to carry its fight against America. Shia militias, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, groups that could use Iranian intelligence, logistics, weapons, and more to launch terror strikes on U.S. allies, embassies, military bases, American officials, or even private citizens abroad or at home.
There is a network of Iranian elements within the United States that the FBI is watching.
Iran's first move will be to cut off the Straits of Hormuz, which will be catastrophic for global energy supplies, as 1/5 of all global oil flows through this vital waterway. And even if Iranian naval vessels are knocked out by US warships or warplanes, then Iran could also attack and sink a large merchant ship or oil tanker to physically blockade the strait. But a bigger concern to Israel and the United States is the real likelihood that Iran not only already possesses at least 2 nuclear warheads, but also it has successfully hidden its arsenal in a network of impenetrable sites.
They've been constructing an underground facility over the past 2 years or so, 2, maybe 3 years. And this facility is much deeper than other underground facilities that we know of, including Fordo and Parchin.
And with what's known about the facility in the Zagros Mountains, concern is growing.
Iran has stated that they would move their centrifuge assembly facilities to this underground facility, but the massive size of this facility does give us concern that they could conduct other operations such as a centrifuge cascade or enrichment program.
Everything we have covered here explains why Trump suddenly and unexpectedly waved Israel off from attacking Iran last week. It's clear the president's advisors have carefully explained to him the potential risks of executing this war, a war that will ultimately destroy Israel and the United
Born
States.
by myself, saith the Lord, that Bozrah shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual wastes. I have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent unto the heathen, saying, Gather ye together, and come against her, and rise up to the battle. For lo, I will make thee small among the heathen, and despised among men. Thy terribleness hath deceived thee, and the pride of thine heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, that holdest the height of the hill. Though thou shouldest make thy nest as high as the eagle, I will bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord. Also Edom shall be a desolation. Every one that goeth by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss at all the plagues thereof. As in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, no man shall abide there, neither shall a son of man dwell in it. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of Jordan against the habitation of the strong. But I will suddenly make him run away from her. And who is a chosen man that I may appoint over her? For who is like me? And who will appoint me the time? And who is that shepherd that will stand before me? Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord that he hath taken against Edom, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. The earth is moved at the noise of their fall. At the cry the noise thereof was heard in the Red Sea.
Iranians have launched around 50 ballistic missiles into this country today, some of them slamming into military establishments into.
Entering the third day, the ongoing exchange of attacks between Iran and Israel has not subsided after Israel attacked several Iranian nuclear facilities for the first time on June 13. Iran did not remain silent and continued to launch deadly attacks. Starting from hundreds of missiles to the latest, dozens of missiles aimed at important areas of Israel, including Tal Afif, which is now in ruins. The Israeli military reported a lot of damage and the number of victims continues to increase. Panic spread to every corner of the city, indicating the fire of conflict is spreading. The impact of the Iranian pawn attacks has destroyed several buildings and damaged hundreds of apartments and vehicles in the Ramat Gan district of Tel Afif. In addition, dozens of missiles and hundreds of drones are said to have hit strategic collocations, including the military complex in Tel Afif. This area is often referred to as the Israeli Pentagon, an area in the center of Al Afif consisting of an urban military base located north of Kaplan Street. Meanwhile, amidst the Iranian missile attacks, rumors of Netanyahu's escape began to spread. Quoting the Anadolu Agency news agency, the Israeli presidential plane known as the Wing of Sion, which was previously used to transport the Israeli ambassador to Greece, has apparently been recorded in the flight information region for Athens, or airspace controlled by the Greek Air Traffic Authority. This shows that if there is an emergency condition exactly like the one currently happening, it is possible for a Greek military cooperation agreement to be realized with the allocation and placement of aircraft from both countries at their respective military airports for as long as needed. With these facts, speculation about Netanyahu's departure from Israeli territory is getting stronger. Because for now Athens in Greece is considered a safe and neutral place that allows for an emergency meeting directly between high-ranking officials from Israel and the United States. Although until now President Trump seems unwilling to interfere in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran. The damage that continues to be reported in important areas of Israel, the increasing number of victims and Netanyahu, who is rumored to have fled, further explain that the Iranian missile attacks have had such an impact. At times like this, some parties have begun to question the effectiveness of Iron Dome, Israel's air defense system, which is always touted as the most sophisticated. Now the system has been found to be unable to withstand Iran alone, making its sophistication even more doubtful. Why did this happen? So far, Iron Dome has been a defense system that Israel has always been proud of. Israeli monitors claim that one of Iron Dome's capabilities is the ability to operate in all conditions and weather, able to detect fast attacks and track targets precisely, and is highly effective in intercepting threats in the air. Unfortunately, these claims seem to be starting to feel exaggerated. Iron Dome's failure to prevent a number of attacks from Iranian missiles is clear evidence that the defense system is not as sophisticated as the Israeli military says. Why did Iron Dome fail to the point of making Israel even more panicked? Because the only air defense system they believed would be able to protect all of Israel. Apparently, it was badly defeated by the Iranian missile attack. Initially, Israel itself developed Iron Dome after the 2006 Lebanon War. However, after some time, the United States then supported the development of Iron Dome by providing defense knowledge and financial support amounting to billions of dollars. According to claims from the Israeli defense firm that helped design this system, Iron Dome has an interception rate of around 90%. Iron Dome is an Israeli defense system designed to intercept short-range rockets at a distance of up to 70 kilometers. Each battery containing iron consists of 3 main parts, namely a radar detection system, a computer to calculate the trajectory of incoming rockets, and a launcher that fires the interceptor. If the incoming rocket is detected, it will enter a strategic area. According to Mohammed Selim of the Doha Institute for Postgraduate Studies, Iron Dome can only intercept short-range rockets. In more detail, Iron Dome is not designed to ward off various attacks launched by Iran, because the use of Iron Dome is intended for short-range rockets and missiles. Meanwhile, according to his vision, Iran itself uses cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and hypersonic missiles. Of course, Iron Dome is unable to withstand it. On the other hand, Mohammed Shalom also explained that in addition to Iron Dome, Israel also has other types of air defense such as AR, which can launch up to 100 kilometers into the sky. Then there is also a defiling system that can intercept projectiles from a distance of 20 kilometers to 70 kilometers in the air. These defense systems can also be placed in various corners of the country simultaneously. However, even if all these systems have been deployed, he still sees that Israel has been attacked for almost 3 days from this era. In addition, the Iranian military said that one of the missiles used in the attack on Israel was a hypersonic missile. This statement is in line with the damage seen at several points in Israeli territory. Iran's hypersonic missiles are believed to have high speed and maneuverability that cannot be underestimated, so that the Iron Dome system can be surpassed. Recently, the Iranian Fars news agency also claimed that Israel was hit by a Hajj-Qasem-guided ballistic missile that Iran officially launched last May. And it is said that this missile has been equipped with a maneuverable warhead. However, contrary to Iran's claims, Israeli military officials said that the missiles launched at Israel by Iran were non-maneuverable. Similar to the missiles fired at Israel in April and October 2024. Military officials also said and emphasized to the Times of Israel that Iranian missiles are not something we cannot intercept. They also said that most of Iran's missile launchers had been damaged. This morning the IDF began preemptive and strikes Iran nuclear program. This claim by Israeli officials also seems to be debatable, considering the number of missiles that were able to penetrate the Iron Dome defense system and cause a lot of damage to various important locations in Israeli territory. In the latest developments, there were around 300 residents in Tel Afif Raya and 100 in Ramat who had to be evacuated due to the damage that occurred in their homes. Although the Israeli media reportedly tried to continue to cover up the extent of the damage. However, information regarding the death toll from Iranian missiles so far is known to have killed at least 3 Israelis and injured 70 people, including 7 soldiers. On the other hand, Iranian state media PAN has claimed that their air defenses have successfully shot down 3 Israeli F-35 fighter jets, although the fact for this has not been independently confirmed. One thing is for sure, the result of the Iranian attacks has also caused the closure of Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. The closure also continues along with the security uncertainty that is still rolling until now. On Saturday night, Iran launched a wave of more devastating missile attacks on Israel. And at that time, Haifa became one of the areas targeted by the missile wave. Fire and smoke occurred in a sensitive location in Haifa and several other locations in Israel. In addition, a report stated that missiles had also hit the city of Tamra, North Arabia. Based on information from Israeli emergency response officers, at least 5 people were injured in Haifa and noted that an Iranian missile hit a 2-story building in Tamra, killing a woman and injuring 13 others. Wow! Mall.
The Lord hath opened his armory, and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord God of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Come against her from the utmost border. Open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. Slay all her bullocks, let them go down to the slaughter. Woe unto them, for their day is come, the time of their visitation.
Now let's get into it. I never fully appreciated the German word Schadenfreude until Iranian ballistic and hypersonic missiles slammed into Tel Aviv over the weekend. In English, Schadenfreude means to take great pleasure from another person's misfortune. And hardly anything has brought me more joy than watching Israelis take to social media to complain about being bombed by a foreign military. The irony couldn't be more delicious, because the same people who told Palestinians to stop crying about being bombed are the same people who are now running and scrambling for the nearest bomb shelter. Call it karmic justice, call it righteous vengeance, or call it something else. But Iranian missiles have gone a long way to restoring our faith in humanity and our hope for ultimate justice. And justice is exactly what this is. Remembering that 82% of Israelis celebrate the genocide that has taken place in their name for the past 21 months, resulting in the slaughter of upwards of 100,000 Palestinians, 75% of whom were women and children. We are talking about a genocide that Israelis have turned into a major tourism attraction, as they enjoy picnics and take selfies while Palestinians are incinerated and starved to death in the background. But now how the tables have turned. Israelis are getting a taste of their own medicine, having started an unprovoked war against Iran, a country that boasts the largest and most diverse ballistic missile stockpile in the Middle East. Israeli cities are on fire. This is not Gaza, this is downtown Tel Aviv. This is what Israel is desperate to keep hidden from the world, as it does its best to conceal the magnitude of Iran's counterattack. What Israel really doesn't want you to know is that its much vaunted Iron Dome air defense system completely failed against Iran's third wave of attack on Sunday evening. You can see Iranian missiles moving freely over Israeli airspace to reach their targets. You're watching an Iranian missile completely destroy a missile interceptor at Israel's Nevatim airbase. Boom, a direct hit, it's gone. And now, you're watching a ballistic missile slam into Israel's equivalent of the Pentagon, the Ministry of Defense building, a direct hit that Zionist-controlled media outlets refuse to report. That is with the exclusion of Fox News, which earned the Israeli government's anger by reporting the truth on this occasion.
The Iranians have responded with 3 waves of ballistic missiles. This is Israel's version of the Pentagon, the Kiryat. And the building on this compound was just hit.
Please go back, please, go back, please.
You can understand here, it's very tense at this specific location. because the Iranians are now targeting the defense establishment of Israel. And so I'm going to have my cameraman pan up here to this building just across the street from the Kiryat. And so,
Israel claims that only 8 Israelis have been killed by Iranian strikes during the past few days. But then again, Israel lies about anything and everything, even things you can see clearly with your own 2 eyes. The reality is way more Israelis have been killed, with dozens, possibly hundreds or even thousands of Israelis buried or trapped beneath the rubble. They now share a similar fate to the more than 10,000 Palestinians who remain buried under the rubble of their own homes in Gaza. An irony lost on Netanyahu's official spokesperson, who now complains about Israelis being targeted while they sleep. Maybe somebody should tell him that 50% of all Palestinians killed in Gaza during the past week were killed while sleeping in tents, as others are murdered while lining up for food and humanitarian aid. Israel is finding out the hard way that it's far more difficult to fight against the military of a nation state than it is to kill starving children in an open-air prison. And whereas the Palestinian resistance is armed only with light weapons and homemade rockets, the Iranian military is armed with some of the most lethal missiles available on the planet. This is Ramat Gan City, located on the edge of Tel Aviv. Bam! Devastating impact. And this is the Mediterranean port city of Haifa, where hypersonic missiles took out a major oil refinery depot, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation.
Whoa! Oh!
Yeah, we're dangerous.
This is Tel Aviv, where missiles are slamming into Israeli targets with relative ease.
Wow. Wow.
A spokesperson for Israel's foreign ministry did the rounds on British television to relay how difficult it was for him to explain to his 9-year-old daughter why they had to rush to a bomb shelter during the middle of the night. Which begs an obvious question. Is this his 9-year-old daughter? Did she write her name on a bomb that killed Palestinian children? You see, unlike Israel, Iran is not deliberately targeting civilians, which even Israeli military acknowledges to be true, saying that 90% of Iran's missiles are fired at Israeli military sites. And because every Zionist accusation is a confession of wrongdoing, it falsely accused Hamas of hiding beneath hospitals in Gaza, while Israeli soldiers construct a new military command base underneath Tel Aviv's Ichilov hospital. They really are a shameless bunch of lying cowards. So much so that even Israeli comedians are taking to the bombed out streets of Tel Aviv to mock their leaders for bombing every country in the Middle East.
Shalom from Tel Aviv. Today I'm giving you a guided tour of what happens when you bomb other countries for fun and act surprised when they shoot back.
Stick around. Next stop, denial and international outrage. Thanks to your support, we've been ignoring war crimes since 1948.
More worrying for Israel is it's running out of interceptor missiles for its Iron Dome air defense system, with US officials now worried that further retaliation from Iran will drain the US global missile stockpile to a horrendous level in coming days. This reality is not lost on ordinary Israelis, who see clearly the writing on the wall and are now fleeing the Jewish state in record numbers, which has forced the Israeli government to ban its citizens from leaving by air. A new report claims that Israel is now paying thousands of dollars to escape Israel by small yachts from the port cities of Haifa and Ashkelon. And as the situation turns ever worse for Israel, the greater the probability it will carry out a false flag attack to drag the United States into its war. Because here's the thing, Israel cannot defeat Iran, and nor does it have the capability to hit Iran where it counts, deep inside its mountain fortresses. And you can't end Iran's nuclear program until you destroy its uranium enrichment capabilities, which can only be reached with US bunker buster bombs. The problem for Israel is that Trump has stated clearly that the US won't get actively involved in Israel's war unless Iran targets Americans, which is ominous given Israel has a proven history of dragging the US into wars via false flag attacks. Remembering that it bombed a US naval ship killing 34 American sailors in 1967.
Chapter 13. The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see. Lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my sanctified ones, I have also called my mighty ones for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustered the host of the battle. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord, and the weapons of his indignation, to destroy the whole land. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty.
Senator Bernie Sanders delivered a powerful and sobering speech warning President Donald Trump not to drag the United States into Netanyahu's war with Iran. It was a rare moment of clarity and reason in American politics. But let's be honest. When was the last time Washington truly listened to the voice of reason? Sadly, figures like Lindsey Graham, cheerleaders for endless war, continue to dominate U.S. foreign policy. Despite the theatrics, Trump's current posture is more performance than principle. Behind the scenes, the U.S. has already deployed everything Israel needs to launch a major strike on Iran. The groundwork has been laid. And while Iran has repeatedly signaled that it does not seek nuclear weapons and would prefer normal diplomatic relations with Israel, such a scenario is simply unacceptable to the Israeli leadership. Why? Because this conflict isn't about defense. It's about dominance. Israel wants to remain the unrivaled power in the region, and that ambition requires crushing any challenge, real or perceived, from Tehran. But this time, Iran won't back down. The moment for diplomatic half-measures has passed. Iran knows that neither Israel nor the U.S. is willing to hear its voice, so will now make itself heard through force. And let's be clear, Tehran doesn't need nuclear weapons to inflict catastrophic damage on Israel. In the process, the United States risks not only the lives of its soldiers, but also the possibility that Iran and its regional allies could take out a few U.S. aircraft carriers or battleships. Such a blow, even in a so-called victory, would mark a decisive point in America's long-declining global dominance. Winning the battle might still mean losing the war for relevance and power. That's why it's in America's best interest to pause, think, and choose wisdom over warfare. It's time to listen, really listen, to voices of reason like Bernie Sanders.
Thank you very much for joining me. In the year 2025, one might have hoped that the global community would be working together to address the existential threat of climate change, working to prevent future pandemics, working to address the massive levels of income and wealth inequality that exist, working to improve the standard of living of struggling people all over the world. But tragically, that is not where we are today. Quite the contrary. Instead of addressing the major crises that we face, the world is now looking at the terrible war in Ukraine, started by Putin, which has taken hundreds of thousands of lives over the last 3 years. We are looking at the horrific war in Gaza, where, as we speak, thousands of Palestinian children are facing starvation due to Israel's inhumane and illegal war policies. And now we face a dangerous and escalating war in Iran, which was begun in violation of international law by the extremist Netanyahu government. And the main point that I want to make today is that it is absolutely imperative that the United States not be dragged into this war. Let me say a word about how this war began. On Thursday, Netanyahu launched an illegal and unilateral surprise attack on Iran, bombing targets across the country and killing hundreds of people. Iran has responded with attacks of its own, which have killed dozens of people in Israel. Whatever you may think of the corrupt and authoritarian Iranian regime, Israel's attack clearly violated international law and the United Nations Charter. While every country has the right to defend itself, they do not have the right to launch so-called preemptive wars of this kind. But let's remember who Netanyahu is. He is a war criminal under indictment by the International Criminal Court for starving innocent people and killing civilians in Gaza. At this very moment, in Gaza, Israel continues to prevent the UN from delivering humanitarian aid. And just today, in Gaza, Israeli tanks fired into a crowd desperately trying to collect food, killing at least 59 people. So it should come as little surprise that Netanyahu ignored international law to start this war with Iran. But Netanyahu's decision to strike also directly contravened the express wishes of the United States, which was seeking a diplomatic resolution to the long-standing tensions around Iran's nuclear program. In recent months, the United States has held 5 rounds of negotiations with Iran to resolve these long-standing concerns. Let me repeat. In recent months, the United States has held 5 rounds of negotiations with Iran to resolve these long-standing concerns. A 6th round of talks was planned for Sunday, but Netanyahu chose instead to start this war. So let's be clear. Israel's attack was specifically designed to sabotage American diplomatic efforts. In fact, in its first round of strikes, Israel assassinated the man overseeing Iran's nuclear negotiating team. And let's also remember that U.S. intelligence has never indicated that Iran has made the decision to build a nuclear weapon. Just a few months ago, Trump's own Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified to Congress that, quote, the intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, end of quote. But Netanyahu chose to attack, crippling diplomatic efforts and risking a full-blown regional war. He is now openly talking about regime change in Iran and threatening to kill the political leadership of that country without any thought to the chaos that might ensue. Let's also not forget that the current Islamic regime in Iran is itself the product of a Western-backed coup in 1953 that overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran and replaced it with a corrupt autocrat. The critical question now is whether the United States will get dragged into Netanyahu's war. In my view, that would be a disaster. The United States must not be involved with another Netanyahu war, not militarily or financially. The United States Constitution is crystal clear. There can be no offensive use of military force against Iran or any other country without an explicit authorization from Congress. No such authorization exists, and any U.S. involvement would therefore be illegal. The United States has already provided hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel over the last many decades. Last year alone, U.S. taxpayers provided more than $22 billion in military aid to Israel. Meanwhile, while providing massive aid to Israel, we have Americans sleeping out on the street, unable to afford health care or other basic necessities. Enough is enough. President Trump ran as a supposed peace candidate. In his inaugural address, he said, and I quote, "My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier," end quote. Very fine words. Trump should remember them today. Supporting Netanyahu's war against Iran would be a catastrophic mistake. Instead of going to war, Trump must work with the international community to rein in Netanyahu and urgently push for a diplomatic solution. Netanyahu's illegal attack has made the world a more dangerous place. The United States must not be a part of this war.
They worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?